Rhythm Queen, Tabla Phenomena, torchbearer of Indian classical music, trailblazer, and trendsetter. Yes, she has been called all this and also called Woman of Pure Wonder, national pride and inspiration. Yes, we are talking about Anuradha Pal. Anuradha Pal, who is a phenomena, who is known as Lady Zakir Hussain, a tabla virtuoso, percussionist, composer, educator. It's a great honor and pleasure to have her here with us on Radio Karishma. It's our honor and privilege that we are sitting here with a pioneer, a trendsetter, a great musician, and women icon, actually a pride of India, Anuradha Pal ji, and it's my gratitude, and I'm really thankful for giving us your very precious time, Anuradha ji.
Absolutely my pleasure.
And
Thank you.
talking to Radio Karishma for the first time, absolutely honored. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karishma ji.
So Anuradha ji, you are known to be, as I introduced, that you're an icon. But you're also, I want to tell my listeners that you're known to be a female version of Zakir Hussain. Okay, so that says it all, that of course your instrument being tabla mainly, but of course there is more to it. You're a percussionist in totality. Tell us more about your, growing up years. What made you choose this area of music, these instruments or percussion?
Well, I started learning classical vocal music, and when I was 7 or 6 years old, I started learning classical vocal. And as I went along, I found that, or rather others discovered that I had a flair for rhythm, because while I was singing a vocal composition or a bandish, it's as if I instinctively knew what tal it would be, or how the theka should go, what should be the rhythmic component of that melodic song. And so they said, maybe you're rhythmically inclined. So that's how I started to learn tabla. Also because tabla or any rhythm instrument is the basis for any vocal or instrumental training, because it's the sur and tal that make music together. So that's how I started learning tabla. And but of course, when I wanted to learn tabla initially, I was stopped.
Really?
Yes, because my brother was learning tabla, and when I expressed to the teacher that I would like to learn tabla, he said, "Wo ladkiyon ka kaam hi nahi hai. You can't do it." He said, "It's not meant for girls. It's too difficult for girls to do, and you won't succeed." And so I said, "Well, let me at least give it a shot." So he said, "No, I will not teach you. It's below my dignity to teach a girl."
Wow.
And so I started learning on my own, just observing my brother and all that. And after about 3 months, the teacher accidentally came early, to teach my brother, and I was practicing with my brother, and that's how he heard me by mistake.
Okay.
And he said, "Wow, where did you learn?" I said, "Well, you refused to teach me, so I learned a little bit, observing here and there, and learned on my own." So that's when he discovered. He said, "Oh wow, you actually picked up really well, so I'll start teaching you."
Wow.
And so that's how my journey started. So it was tough right from the beginning. Then when I started performing when I was 10 years old, and that really shook up people, because here was this girl doing something that was absolutely blasphemy, and they found that, who the hell am I? I neither came from a musician family, because usually in India, music, like in Bollywood, everything, you have film stars, you have their children that get into it. Similarly, in the music world, you have musicians' children that carry the legacy forward. And while they have disciples, but it's generally the gharanas that are determined by the progeny. So I didn't even come from a musician family. I didn't have a single musician in my family. I came from a family of professionals. and highly educated ones.
And then you're choosing the most unique instrument.
And the most male-dominated one.
Yes.
And so there were too many negatives against me.
Okay.
And I think somewhere that I realized that, but it was just the passion of something spoke to me when I was playing the tabla. I don't know what it was. And to a great extent, my mother, being a very well-known painter and a writer, Anuradha Pal herself, that's one of her works, is instrumental in actually helping me realize that passion, because she, being an artist, knew that there's like a camel's hump. Every artist needs to sort of go over that hump to realize the joy of being an artist. So first you have to really struggle, and then you go on, maybe then you discover the joy. And so she sensitized me about that journey and about the passion being the driving force, which I think was beautiful, because to set the values right and not pursue something because you will be the first one to do it, or because you will make a big name, as typically people, that's like a driving force for most people, that they want to be the first ones or they want to be unique. But I had no clue what I was getting into. So I would not know that I was being unique in any manner. I realized that only when I got into the field and I saw the opposition and I saw the struggle that lay ahead of me, that I realized, oh my God, I'm in something difficult. Before that, it was just fun for me to just play. And I think that's what the interest grew. The interest grew into a passion, and the passion into a profession.
Okay. So even though you had some difficulties in the beginning when people were resisting teaching you tabla,
even later on, when I wanted to get into performing, I was stopped. I was, there was a lot of discrimination. I was not given equal opportunity. I was not given equal pay as another musician, a male musician would be getting. My volume would be made half. So, I mean, there were umpteen ways to make life difficult for me.
So you definitely had very good gurus in your credit.
That was later.
Okay.
That
you
came in later.
Anuradha Khan.
Yes, that was later. When I started, when I started, I learned from the Banaras Gharana, and then when I was, I think, 12 or something, I started learning from Anuradha Pal and Zakir Hussain. And of course, I had known Zakir Bhai because when I was a child, I had actually accidentally had an amazing meeting with him.
Okay.
And I think that's where it's like you say, there is like a previous birth or a previous connection that comes in. My grandmother was a great patron of music and arts, and I come from a family of very idealistic family, freedom fighter. My grandfather was an educationist who founded MT Vyas. He founded the 35 schools all over India, and my grandmother was a pioneer. She was also into education, but also a lot into the arts and culture and all that. And no, that's my painter is my mother.
Okay.
But my grandmother was connoisseur, and she promoted the arts and all that.
Okay.
So we used to have a lot of great artists like Pandit Jasraji and Dr. Rajam and Pandit Harinprasad Chaurasia, Pandit Shivkumar Sharma, all these great artists visiting our house all the time. And I think that's the listening, the latent listening that I got.
That brushed upon.
Plus, my mother used to sing.
Okay.
So all that, in a sense, though I come from a musician family, but that was the whole thing.
You were living with music.
I was living with music. And later on, when it came to, so when I was 6 to 7 years old, my grandmother passed away. And the following year, we had a concert in which Ustad Zakir Hussain accompanied Shiv Kumar Sharma ji and Pandit Jasraj ji. And I happened to just walk into the concert green room, and I saw this tabla sitting over there, and I don't know what came. I just went and I just started playing it.
Okay.
Yeah, I had that time not started learning tabla.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just went and I started playing the tabla. So he came, Zakir Bhai came back and like, obviously I'm not supposed to touch his instrument without asking, right? But I didn't know. I was just so drawn to that instrument.
Wow.
And so he took me in his lap and he said, "Bajaogi?" I said, "Bajaogi?" So I didn't know who I'm sitting, who is this great person, And so he put my hands on the tabla, and I started to play. Now, and then of course years later I met him again when I went to learn from him. So I think somewhere there was a connection that was created because I was a child. Here was I with the tabla. And
that too, Zakir Hussein's tabla. You started your journey with his tabla.
And with his putting his blessings on me and blessing me with with his fingers. जैसे आप बोलते हैं हाथ रखना. हाथ रखना is a very important aspect. And so he did that. And then of course he always tells me, he always teases me. He says, "Your name has tabla, Anuradha." Dha is the most important word of the tabla.
Okay.
It's like sa, or the first like A, B, C, D.
Okay.
So A. Okay. So it's the most important word of the tabla. It's the starting point. So, and my name being Anuradha, so sometimes he teaches me, he says Anuradha, din din da da, din din da. So that's I think the whole. So somewhere I think there must have been some previous
the calling that you had to do this.
But yes, my parents were, it was great that my parents, despite not being musicians, supported me, encouraged me, and also inculcated the right kind of values to be able to make a little bit of a place in this very male-dominated profession because they inculcated the values of professionalism and commitment, which I think is so very, very important to being a good professional. Because these days people look at the word professional as somebody who charges money. I look at the word as professional as somebody who is dedicated to that profession to the extent when money or nothing matters.
Yes.
That's my idea of what a professional is. So if you are committed to your art, you're committed to your work, despite whatever challenges you may have, or the lack of money or the lack of opportunity, if you continue to remain dedicated, that is the true definition of a professional in my opinion.
Absolutely. And we do see that happening in your career, not just the music, but besides music, you have done so much for the music world, I would love to talk about that, especially the groups that you have created and the innovative programs that you have created through your music. Please tell us about that, and where did you draw the inspiration for that? You just not broken the challenge of being the first female tabla player, and that was celebrated one, accompanying most of the big artists and touring with them. At the same time, you've also, being a trendsetter yourself, and you've taken that responsibility, you're taking it to another level. So please tell us about that.
When I started my journey, I had no godfather.
Okay.
Nobody to help me, nobody to guide me, nobody to support me. And I found that it's so tough because people have mindset issues, they have discrimination, which is still there, and there's chauvinism. There are many, many unfortunate mindset issues which we haven't been able to get over. And plus it's hierarchical, it's based on gharana, it's based on if you belong to a line of musicians or not. So I mean, I had to go through all those challenges, and so I said, why not I do something for those women, who are talented, who are similarly driven about doing their work, and get together and provide a platform that allows for experimentation, spontaneity, and for those women to make it big by
Creating
by
that
unity, by that
by
unity.
creating that support group which you could not have.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
because-
you are doing that because you realized that you felt that there was not there.
I felt the twang of not actually having that. And I felt, okay, it's one thing to be selfish, self-centered and focused on I, me, myself. But it's another to want to think for the field and say, okay, fine, okay, you had it tough, you are having it tough, but what can you do for others so it
Make it
somewhere makes it easier. And if it's just 2 cents, that's fine, but at least you need to make a big impact.
Absolutely.
So that's how I got into this. I formed a band called Stree Shakti, which I formed in 1996. So it's 23 years now, going to be 23 years in March. March 8th, it's going to be 23 years. So it's, and it was the first group where the Hindustani Carnatic repertoire came together, presented only by women artists, only by the top women artists of the country, be it instrumental, vocal, and percussion. And because I also somewhere wanted to merge the lines, somewhere we also have a lot of these things about vocal, then instrumental, then percussion, it being like a hierarchy. And I wanted it to be just music. Why don't I just celebrate music? Because not one can exist without the other. So let it be all embracing and all encompassing. And probably this thought again came from the fact that from my family, and I would credit my family for that, because my father was a very known consultant for the pharmaceutical industry, and Devendra Pal, and he had struggled tremendously from the partition days. And when he came into India from Pakistan, his mother had to struggle through the partition. Her husband had been killed in the war. My grandfather, he was in the Indian Army, he had been killed, and they had so much of land and property and wealth in Pakistan, but then they moved to India and they had nothing, so they were on the streets. And my grandmother literally transported the 5 children across the Bias River. There was just one boat, which is taking all the refugees from one side to the other, and that was not enough. So she swam across the river with one kid on the shoulder. Would drop the kid, come back for the next kid. So that's how. And then she came to India and stayed under street lights on the road, and through education and through scholarships, because the children were so intelligent and so hardworking, that my eldest chacha, he became a scientist. My father became a pharmacist, and he became a doyen of the pharmaceutical industry. So everybody did it on their own steam, and without any help. So somewhere a lot of that drive, a lot of that inspiration, and that fervor came from my family.
Absolutely.
So that has, my family has been a huge driving force in terms of my ideology, in terms of my approach to commitment, in terms of my dedication to my art. Because it's not, we have all had to struggle. My dad came up from nowhere to the top of the industry, only on the basis of his hard work and intelligence. And that was a big inspiration to me. Same for my mother. So I owe a lot to my family for giving me that inspiration. Plus, I also was inspired a lot by people like M.F. Hussain, who was my mother's guru. And being a painter, my mother had learned from him. And he would come home to our place a lot.
Okay.
And so I remember growing up as a child with this great man, with him, with all these great masters, playing in their lap, being mentored by them, being shouted at that, like perspective, like M.F. Hussain Sahab. Once I remember an amazing conversation I had with him when he spoke about perspective. And it opened my mind out to possibilities. So today when I do all these different things, okay, it's very inspired by the fact that M.F. Hussain, when I would have those conversations and he would speak about how having this kind of a vision, and that is somewhere what I try to do as an artist, that we just don't look like this. You focus like this, but you have this vision.
Broaden your horizon.
Broaden your horizons. So that is something which I learned a lot from M.F. Hussain as well. And of course my gurus, my Tabla gurus, have been very, very inspirational, because they being the best and the greatest Tabla legends have set such amazing exacting standards. Plus they also were when I went to learn from Ustad Anuradha Pal sahab, I remember telling him that, Abbaji, aap, hit me, slap me, do what you like, but teach me, make me the best. Let there be no lacuna in me. And I think somewhere that made him so comfortable that here was somebody who was willing to surrender, willing to submit, willing to dedicate.
Absolutely.
And that opened the floodgates of his knowledge to me, and same for Zakir Bhai, So I have been, so to get that, I think to get that kind of training, it's great. Plus, then I have played with such great masters from the time I was a child. Like I remember, your name is Karishma. That used to be my name by Ustad Sultan Khan.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll narrate a funny incident for you.
Okay.
When I was performing in Kota, and this is in Rajasthan.
Yes.
And I was just maybe 16 years old, something like that. And I had gone to play with Sultan Khasa and for the Sangeet Natak Academy, which is a very premier institution. And so when I walked in with the tabla and sat on the stage, and people thought, okay, maybe the tabla player is coming from behind and I'm just the helper, student putting the tabla there. And here I go and I sit on the tabla, like, oh God, who is this person? Who is this girl? Never heard of her, never saw her. Who the hell is she? There were these murmurs in the audience. And then I said, so I started to play. And started so people say, oh, okay, she knows how to play Tirikit also.
Okay.
They're discussing this, huh? I mean, I can hear all this happening. Acha, usko Tirikit bhi bajana aata hai. Okay. Then the funny thing happened. So then Sultan Khan looked at me, and he used to call me Karishma.
Okay.
He said, "Tu Karishma hai. Karishma hai. Ki you're a wonder girl. Tu Karishma hai. कि तूने जो किया है, इसको भी से तुमने जो किया है वो करिश्मा है, तो तुम्हारा नाम ही करिश्मा में रखता हूँ, so he looked at me and he said, करिश्मा बता दो इन लोगों को तुम क्या चीज हो, because here they were giving these dismissive looks and comments and all that, and I said, so he said, बेटे बता दो, so that was it. I took off. And then I played my heart out. Okay, and I played my heart out. Then this audience got up and they ran towards the stage.
Okay.
Now I thought they're coming to hit me. Now where do I go? I'm sitting in this horrible class-like position. I can't get up and run, and the audience is coming to hit me. And so I pick up the hammer in my hand like the great Jhansi ki Rani, trying to protect myself from this audience that was just here to attack me as if. But they were just coming to look at me.
Yes.
Am I for real, or am I some ghost or something in the form of a girl? You know? So, and then the whole concert went on for like 3-4 hours, and
Wow.
people went on and on. They wouldn't let us stop. We had such great artists. All the top artists were performing in that festival. And then the next day, you know, so, and I got my All India Radio grade. I became an A grade artist when I was not even before I was 18. So I was underaged, actually. When you're only supposed to become a top grade, you know, A grade artist when you're 18, but I was not 18 when the radio just gave, you know, they gave me that grade. Of course, I appeared through the auditions and all that, but yes. So I mean, so my journey has been very beautiful, because while it has been very difficult, but the love and the respect I have got from both the audience as well as musicians, and the encouragement from musicians that I got, because once they saw that here I was for real and I was going to be working my heart out, and that they could expect nothing but the best from me, and they you know, the best of the musicians, be it Pandit Shivkumar Sharma or Ustad Shahi Perez, they would play the most complicated tals with me.
Okay.
You know, so to check me
Challenge
out.
you, yes.
Yeah, and that's so good that they did that. You know, because it helped me to always remain humble, helped me to always understand the depth of this knowledge and the depth of our music, and also for me to keep growing.
Yes.
And which I think is so important, you know, to have that fire in your belly.
Absolutely, yeah. So Anuradha ji, you have actually performed in like prestigious music festivals like Woodstock, and you know, your status being the only female artist continues even there. You know, tell us more about that, your experience and performing in world stage with like almost 500,000 audience. How would you like to, you know?
That was the most incredible, most memorable experience of my life. And I thank God for that huge honor I got to represent my country at such a huge stage as Woodstock, and being the first female professional and the youngest female professional to ever perform in both the festivals, be it Woodstock and WOMAD, is a huge honor. And it's really the blessings of my gurus, my parents, my elders, and the love of the audience which took me there. And I mean, it was just something that came about out of the blue, honestly. I was performing in Delhi for a film called Gender Bender.
Okay.
And there was a film that was about how you know, there have been women pioneers who've changed the way people, you know, society thinks. And I was performing in that thing, in that festival, in that, on the occasion of that, the launch of the film. And after the concert, some people came and met me, and they said that, you know, we would like to interview you when we come to Bombay. We would like to interview you. And so we fixed a date. And they said that, you know, we are from Poland and we'd like to interview you. Okay. So they came to my house in Juhu, and we were doing the interview, and suddenly my phone rang with a track from my album, which I had just released, which is called Recharge. And so they said, what is that music? And I said, well, that's from my new band, Recharge. I've just said, can we hear it? So they heard it. So I said, okay, you know, we just wanted to, sorry, but we didn't tell you earlier, but we are from we are the organizers of the Woodstock Festival. And would you agree to play a tabla solo and also with your band at the Woodstock Festival?
Wow. So
I like nearly fell off the seat. I'm like, I didn't even know you guys were like Woodstock. So he said, yeah, we travel incognito so that we can
catch
fix talent.
Yes.
And so then the next thing I know, I was there performing, and there was this huge audience of 400,000 people in front of me. every other country in the world being represented, and I was representing my country, and and um, and uh, and when I get onto the stage and I see this crowd, this huge crowd, and that crowd was such that either they love you or they hate you. If they hate you, they throw a beer bottle at you. And if they love you, they'll listen to you.
Yes.
And they'll cheer you.
Yes.
Okay. So be prepared for whatever you get.
Yes, absolutely.
So I was really scared, and I said, my music, classical music, fusion music, are they really gonna like it? Or are they gonna throw a beer bottle in my face?
Yeah.
But by God's grace, it went out very well, and we got a full 1 hour to perform on the main stage.
Wow.
And 30 minutes on the smaller stage. And I also performed, I was also introduced as Asia's youth icon, and I also conducted a workshop, a rhythm workshop, about, which I have incidentally done in many parts across the world, right from Harvard University to New England Conservatory to Berkeley School to Italy to France to Germany to wherever the big universities are, in Australia and Japan and all that, where because I have always felt that Indian music is so beautiful and it's so vast that we all need to work harder to spread the beauty of that music everywhere, and no matter what, and we are fortunate that and I also had the great blessing of Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, and that I would say was another great blessing for me. Is I was performing with every year Ustad Anuradha Pal Sahab used to have the Guru Purnima function, when we would have the great opportunity of performing for our Guru, and performing for your Guru is the most difficult task, because you'll be judged and you'll be slaughtered at the end of it if you don't perform properly.
Yes.
You're going to be dissected, and that's what you want, right?
Yes.
That's the only way you'll grow. And so I used to have this opportunity to perform every year for the Ustad Anuradha Guru Purnima. And Abbaji used to tell me, Abbaji is Ustad Anuradha Pal Sahab, he used to tell me, beta, last year you played this tal, now you play this tal.
Okay.
So it was always made tougher for me every year,
Absolutely.
And he said, then one of those years he said, Pandit Ravi Shankar ji is coming, and he likes to hear this tal, so you play this tal for him.
So it was like added pressure.
I mean, already my guru is there, and he's telling me to play such a difficult tal, and then he tells me the great Pandit Ravi Shankar ji is coming. So I performed, and by God's grace, he was very happy, and Panditji was very happy, and then he said, I want to hear more of you. It's very good. I want to hear more of you. So I said, okay, I'm performing with Ustad Amjad Ali Khan Sahab. I was going to be performing in Bombay in one of the festivals. So he said, oh, even I'm performing in that festival.
Oh my God.
So I said, oh. So he said, okay, so we'll meet over there.
Wow.
I'll hear you over there too. So, okay. So after the concert got over, after I performed with Amjad Ali Khan Sahab, I went to take Panditji's blessings. So he said, excellent. I will, I want to hear more of you. Yeah, so then in that concert, so Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, he heard me, he was very appreciative. Then he called me 5-6 days later.
Achha.
And he said, tomorrow is my birthday,
Okay.
and I want you to come to Delhi and perform for me.
Wow.
I'm like, I was about to fall down again. I was in my 9th standard.
Wow.
I was in 9th standard.
So were you still seen as a professional player, or you were seen as a child prodigy by these
Of
gurus?
course, I was seen as a child prodigy.
Okay.
But I was seen as a professional because I got into professional performances by the
Very
time I
early.
was 13.
Yeah. Okay.
So at big festivals and stuff like that.
Yes.
But I started performing. So so he said, I want you to come and play. And that, so I was I was like, my God, this is incredible. And I was in the middle of my exams.
Okay.
Actually, I was in the middle of my exams. But Pandit Ravi Shankar ji asking me, there's no way.
Yes.
Like in the sense, I was in the middle of my study for the exams. The exams were like a week later, and I was just studying for the exams.
Yeah.
But obviously, if he says it, there's no way I'm not going to go.
Yes.
So I went to Delhi, and and I landed from the airport and went straight to his house. And he said, I want you to play with him and him. And who were the artists? Pandit Vishwamohan Bhatt.
Wow.
And Deepak Majumdar, Deepak Chaudhary, who were both his great disciples. And so in the evening, I played with them. And the most beautiful thing, how Pandit Ravi Shankar ji, when he listened to me, he would, he was a dancer, as you know.
Yes.
He was a dancer, he was, I mean,
An artist.
an incredible musician, an incredible innovator, an incredible thought leader. I mean, I don't know, I don't have the words to describe his contribution.
Absolutely.
And so he just said, why don't you? And when I played, and the way he would shake his, like this, and the dancer in him, and then after I finished and I came down and took his blessings, so he just hugged me and he said, you gave me the best gift,
That is
on
so
my
sweet.
birthday,
Yes.
and now you stay over here and you learn from me.
Wow. So,
So-
all the exams are gone out.
So I'm like, okay.
Idea of exams just disappeared.
So now you stay here and you learn from me. Okay, sir. I mean, okay. So obviously I was studying somewhere in the middle, but I was, of course, learning from him all the time. 12 hours learning from him, and then cramming, for my exams and all that in the middle of all that. Fortunately, I would say because of music, the little studying that I did still got me far. And because still got me good enough grades, so I wasn't thrown out of my family.
Okay.
Because my family is
Coming from
extremely
educationist.
educated, extremely educated. The minimum education was a master's,
Yeah.
and that means, and first in the university was like the minimum achievement.
Okay.
And so like that was the standard of my family. My dad said, do what you like, but you have to come first. That's okay. Do what you like, but you have to do this. So, and same with my mom. Isme kya mushkil hai? You can do it. So it was always like that.
So you've always handled pressure.
Always
Whether
had
at
too much
home,
pressure.
yes, and even on the music, the area that you chose, you were always, given the burden of pressure of
Always.
proving yourself.
Always.
Constantly.
Always. I don't know.
Proving against
I don't know
pride.
why God has given me so much of pressure in my life. I don't know.
Yeah, but maybe that must have made you what you are actually, and you're guiding so many women through your Stree Shakti group, or even like as a musician you have done so much for the music, as in very innovative creating bands or making music or workshops, going different places. There is another group which is again a different group that you've created, which is different from the Stree Shakti and the Recharge, Sufore. So yeah, I mean, we would love to know about that as well.
Sufore basically stands for Sufi, folk, recharged.
Oh, okay. So it's all
Okay.
mixed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's the Sufi music, there's folk music of Rajasthan and other states, there's some Qawwali, there's some, and it's recharged with classical music.
Wow.
So if you notice, I have, and be it in my fusion work, I mean, I've done a lot of different albums, like Recharge, like Get Recharged, which is one of the top-selling fusion albums, and for a whole 2 years, it was like the top-selling album.
Awesome.
And another one called Recharge Plus, which was again where I brought in different influences of jazz, Latin, African music, and collaborated with different musicians across the world to create a different genre in the sense, see, fusion music is nothing new. Indian music has always had that.
Yes.
Be it from the time of Ustad Aladia Khasab, when he had the Mayhar band, when he had Western and Indian instruments coming together. What is important, I think, in fusion music is to conceptualize, compose, and execute with thought, not jam. A lot of the music these days that happens is about jamming, like, you know. So there may not be necessarily too much thought behind it, which in my opinion is not fusion music, because fusion is, there should be first thought, and then the music comes together. The elements that have to come together when you have found connecting.
Yeah.
Points.
See, in layman's, very limited knowledge of music, people who are just enjoying the music, they just see fusion like two different genres coming together. You know?
Which is fine. That is fusion music. But I'm just saying that there is so much. So that is exactly where I try to expand or demystify Indian classical music. Because my idea was use the best of Indian classical music and musicians to work with different genres and create a different fusion, whereby I'm like some of my tracks, for example, there's a track which is where I've used a Sufi track. Okay, it's a Sufi song where the percussion is actually communicating the love and the longing between the male and the female, right? And somewhere I have always tried to use percussion and give it that additional voice, you know. Be it even in Gajagamini, when I did the
you did the background score of that movie
for M.F. Hussain's new movie, and over there also my whole idea was, how can I use, I mean, people think tabla not everybody knows that it has a language. Not everybody believes that it may have emotions, right? And so my idea as a practitioner of this instrument, and more than a practitioner, a pujari of this instrument, right? Because I consider myself a sadhak of this instrument, a student, and if I need to truly spread this, I need to demystify Indian classical music. So which is why I thought of Krishna Ke Tal, which is another presentation of mine, where I have used the
Ras Leela.
Yeah, where I have used you know, the Leelas of Krishna. I have interpreted the Leelas of Krishna on the tabla.
Wow.
And using different other instruments like flute and you know, different percussion instruments as well as vocal to bring out this element of poetry, music and tabla.
Wow.
Coming out together.
Awesome.
Again, the poetry part of it comes from my mother.
Absolutely.
Because she was a painter and a writer and a poet, and so I was very influenced by, you know, that by the kind of, you know, exposure I got, which was very broad. On one hand, for my dad, all the scientific thing, and for my mom, all the artistic thing. So that was a great blessing for me.
So, when you were talking about that you have to spread or demystify the classical music, I would like to ask you this question. You have students, you're teaching a lot of people, you do a lot of workshop all over the world. How do you see the future of Indian classical music? Do you see the next generation interested enough in it and to carry out the work, the kind of work that you have learned and, you know, created?
You know, they are very, I would say that people are very interested. There is fantastic talent. Okay, there's great work being done by a lot of wonderful musicians, young musicians and upcoming musicians. They are very hardworking, doing a great job. So, you know, music is very strong and very secure. There are, I mean, sometimes I feel that on the other side, I also feel that there are some young musicians who look at the monetary aspect more than the passion behind it, and which could be just an individual aberration.
Okay.
You know, but music is, you know, it's spreading, it's very popular, and and they're great, it's great talent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, in the end, I would really like to ask, to give a message to our youth icons. But I'm wishing to ask you this one question. You've been awarded not only for your musical talent in your music area, but also for the kind of work that you have done as a woman, pushing the women's right in so many ways. What is more dear to you? What are the awards that you really cherish for? Okay, I was recognized for this. This is really close to my heart.
I think the President's Award was very important to me, because being a First Lady's Award given by the President of India is a huge honor. Definitely. And many other awards. And I think the biggest award that an artist looks for is love from your colleagues and love from the audience. And that is the most important driving force, more than awards, more than money, more than anything else. It is for me. When a great musician tells me, Anuradha bahut acha bajaya, that's bigger than any award. Or when an audience comes to me, a member of the audience comes to me and says, because of you, my son has learned to dream big, and that I'm from a very poor family, but my son today is studying to become a doctor because he is inspired by you. Or when there's a book that was released on 51 women pioneers, and I was included as one of those, along with greats like, Jhansi Ki Rani and all that. I totally don't deserve to be there, but I was included there. But all these things inspire me to work harder, because for me, my life is about, I've always tried to do something for society, somewhere that's also ingrained by my family values. And maybe my extended society or my family is the musician family, and so I try whatever way I can to contribute. So I think somewhere that's for me, the biggest award has, and also when I do research, for example, I've also been involved in research with Harvard University or Neurosciences Institute about the relationship between the brain, music, and tabla. Now that these kind of things help me to look within and think about more possibilities, and so it inspires me to be it the innovations that I do, or the Tabla Jugalbandi, which is another thing which I present, where basically that's like Anuradha Pal in Tabla Jugalbandi with herself, where there are interactive stories on the tabla that I present, which are rhythmic, innovative stories. So the whole idea has been to expand our audiences without compromising on the classicism or the traditional music, but by putting it across in a manner that a younger person also feels attractive, and a younger and a veteran listener or a aficionado also identifies with the classicism. So because he sees that it's being followed to the T. And I think that is really my desire, to make sure that music spreads, and professionalism and dedication to the art should be inculcated based on that passion. You have to feel the fire.
So you've done so much so far. I mean, is there anything that you aspire to do now after this?
No, the journey has just begun as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, awesome.
I have not done anything.
Okay.
I have a lot to do. I have miles to go before I sleep.
Absolutely.
And
wish you good luck for that.
And yes, I mean, I would say, when you coming back to your earlier point about when God tries to put pressure on you and all that, yes, I mean, I totally agree. Like the last 3 years, on a very personal note, were very, very tough on me because my father got brain cancer, and so I was attending to him in between doing my concerts, and he also wanted me to do my master's in music. And so I enrolled for my master's in music, and I was studying with no notes, everything in Marathi, but nothing in English or Hindi. No information, no study material, and so I had to find all that. So I was studying for my master's, I was doing concerts, I was attending to my father, I was doing research, I was, so, and plus looking after my mother, who I, both of them I unfortunately lost in 15 months. But the pressure was so high on me to still continue to be a professional. And because they inculcated it, 3 days after my father passed away, my mother said, there was a concert of Sri Shakti, and there were a few people who were dissuading me about doing the concert. And she said, no, your father would want the show to go on. And you have always been a professional, you've always had it tough. Don't let anything come in the way. Another time, I'll tell you, when I was doing a concert tour of Sri Shakti in 2016, and I was to do this 10-city concert tour of Europe. And just in the last week, and I was going on a diplomatic visa, being sent by the ICCR, and incidentally, where I'm, the outstanding category artist in the Ministry of Culture and ICCR, and they asked me to do this tour, and this in the last minute. I had 6 women artists booked, and in the last minute, like 1 week before, 3 artists could not come. And we could not get a substitute because the diplomatic passport goes through several levels of checking and security clearances, and so in 1 week they could not get a second substitute organized. So they said, will you just be able to do it with 3 of you? And I sat up the whole night and the day to try and master those instruments that those 3 people who were not going to play were to play. And that's how I created a multi-percussion setup where I was doing the tabla, playing the pakhavaj, playing the bongo, playing the djembe, playing the darbuka, and playing the hand sonic, and several other percussion instruments. So I was playing 8 percussion instruments, all managed by me, right? And the whole inspiration of that happened because my mother told me, I was like so depressed. I was so sad when I got to know that these 3 women can't join. And my mother said, find a way around it. And I said, how can I have with 2 hands play 3 other people's job? Find a way. That's all she said. I don't know how to, because she's not a musician, so she can't advise me how to do it. So she said, just find a way. So I think that is, and by God's grace, the tour went well. In fact, the headline in the newspaper said, Anuradha Pal looked like Durga with 8 hands, playing with, like Goddess Durga with 8 hands playing these instruments. So, it was just, I think, God tends to sort of really pressurize me a lot. Sometimes I wish he would do that.
Well, I wish you good luck. Your entire journey, your career it's a message to all the listeners and who are aspiring musicians who are watching you. But in the end, would you like to give them a message?
I think my life is a message, and whatever I have struggled with, whatever I have kept my dignity about things. I have never asked for attention or sympathy, or even like I said, when I was going through all these personal problems with my mother and father in hospitals, with all sorts of tragedies happening in my house, with 3 pure people passing away in the same year, not once did I cancel or change any music commitment or even other commitment. And it was not because of any other reason, but because my dedication to the art was total. And I think it was not based on money, it was not based on the fame, but it was based on the fact that I gave my word and I will be there. And I think that is, that's my message, that you have to really love your art to get there. A lot of times people say you're very lucky, and I want to ask them how.
Yeah. It's sheer hard work that I hear when I've been talking to you for
Exactly.
almost half an hour now, and it's
Yeah.
been a pleasure and honor to be here
Yeah.
and able to talk to you and listen to your life journey from your own mouth. It's absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, Anuradha ji, for talking to Radio
My
Karishma.
pleasure. Thank you so
We
much.
wish you all the luck for whatever you
Thank you so
decide
much.
to do in future.
I will only say that the other thing I just love to do is collaborate with musicians across the world and cultures, because somewhere I think bringing people together is a mission.
Yes.
Be it with Sri Shakti, be it with Krishna Ketal, be it with Sufore, be it with Recharge, be it with all these collaborations that I've done with lots of musicians across the world. My whole idea has been about connecting cultures and about bridging those gaps. And even like, for example, when I was the brand ambassador for the for the Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao.
Okay.
I'm also the brand ambassador for
Wow.
that. And where the whole idea was to spread music and yoga,
Okay.
and how to and sensitize. I went and sensitized these 1 lakh villagers on female feticide and on making sure that they give equal rights of education and livelihood and basic rights to their little girls. And that's another cause. I mean, there's so many causes, be it the army, where I also feel very passionate about the army and I contribute to the army. So, to the Indian Army, of course. So I think that is, I think we have to somewhere, that's also somewhere a message that we need to think beyond ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. It was absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much once again. Really, really appreciate your precious time, Anuradha.
Thank you.
Lovely talking.
My
Thank you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Namaskar.